The American Civil War from 1861 to 1865 remains a pivotal event in American history. It pitted brother against brother, North against South, in a struggle over slavery, states' rights, and union. The seeds of this conflict were sown long before the first shots at Fort Sumter, rooted in the differences between the North and South. The North, with its industries and cities, contrasted sharply with the agrarian South, where slavery was entrenched. The election of Abraham Lincoln, opposed to the expansion of slavery in 1860, was the catalyst for secession. 11 Southern states seceded, forming the Confederate States of America, led by Jefferson Davis. The stage was set for a conflict that would test the nation's fabric and leave an enduring legacy. At the heart of the conflict lay economic disparities, states' rights, and slavery, often referred to as the peculiar institution. The North, experiencing an industrial revolution, had a diverse economy with factories, railroads, and urban growth. This industrial boom led to rapid urbanization and a shift towards a more modern, interconnected economy. In contrast, the South relied heavily on agriculture, particularly cotton, which was sustained by the labor of enslaved people. This agricultural dependency created a stark economic divide between the two regions. This economic disparity fostered deep resentment, with the South viewing the North's growing economic dominance as a direct threat to their way of life and economic interests. Southerners staunchly defended states' rights, particularly on the issue of slavery, arguing that the federal government had no right to interfere in their domestic affairs. The North, on the other hand, saw this as an attempt to preserve and expand the institution of slavery, which they increasingly condemned as morally reprehensible. The most contentious issue was undoubtedly slavery, which was central to Southern identity and economic prosperity. The South's entire social and economic structure was built upon this institution. Abolitionists in the North condemned slavery as a moral abomination, demanding its immediate end and rallying support for the cause through passionate speeches and publications. By 1860, the issue of slavery had become a powder keg, and Abraham Lincoln's election was the spark that ignited the Civil War, setting the stage for a conflict that would reshape the nation. With the secession of the Southern states, the nation plunged into civil war. The first shots at Fort Sumter in April 1861 marked the beginning of a bloody conflict. Early Confederate victories raised doubts about the Union's ability to prevail. However, the tide turned in 1863 with Union victories at Vicksburg and Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, a three-day bloodbath, was a turning point. Meanwhile, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, transforming the war into a crusade against slavery. The final years saw the relentless advance of Union forces under General Ulysses S. Grant. The Confederacy, starved of resources, crumbled. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, ending the Civil War. The end of the Civil War brought relief and jubilation, as the nation celebrated the hard-won peace, but also the daunting task of piecing together a shattered nation, both physically and emotionally. The human cost was staggering, with countless families mourning their lost loved ones. Over 620,000 soldiers perished, leaving behind a legacy of grief and sacrifice. The South lay in ruins, its economy in shambles, and its infrastructure devastated. The abolition of slavery created new challenges, as millions of formerly enslaved people sought to build new lives. These individuals were thrust into freedom with little support, facing immense social and economic hurdles. Politically, the war expanded federal power, reshaping the nation's governance. It also affirmed the indivisibility of the Union, a principle that would guide future generations. The assassination of President Lincoln further shocked the nation, complicating the already difficult Reconstruction process. The immediate aftermath was a period of uncertainty, marked by political and social upheaval. Yet, it was also a time of hope and profound change, as new opportunities emerged. The nation faced the monumental task of healing, rebuilding, and redefining its identity. It was a time to forge a new path towards a more just and equitable society. The legacy of the Civil War continues to shape American society today, reminding us of the enduring struggle for justice and unity. The period following the Civil War, known as Reconstruction, was marked by efforts to rebuild the South and integrate formerly enslaved people into society. This era was a time of significant transformation and hope, As the nation sought to heal its deep wounds and redefine its identity, the Reconstruction era saw the passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which were monumental in abolishing slavery, granting citizenship to all born in the U.S., and guaranteeing the right to vote regardless of race. These amendments laid the foundation for future civil rights advancements. These amendments represented a significant step towards racial equality, but faced fierce resistance in the South. Many white Southerners were unwilling to accept the new social order, leading to widespread tension and conflict. In response, white Southerners implemented black codes to restrict the freedoms of African Americans, aiming to maintain a semblance of the pre-war racial hierarchy. These laws severely limited the rights and opportunities available to African Americans. Terrorist organizations like the Ku Klux Klan emerged to undermine Reconstruction efforts through violence and intimidation, targeting both African Americans and their allies. Despite these challenges, African Americans made significant strides during Reconstruction. They participated in government, established schools, and built communities, demonstrating resilience and determination. However, by the 1870s, Northern support for Reconstruction waned, and federal troops were withdrawn from the South. This marked the beginning of the end for Reconstruction efforts. The end of Reconstruction marked a significant setback for racial equality, leading to the rise of the Jim Crow era. Segregation and disenfranchisement became the new norm, reversing many of the gains made during Reconstruction. The legacy of slavery and the unfulfilled promises of Reconstruction continue to haunt the nation. The struggles and achievements of this era remain a crucial part of America's ongoing journey towards equality and justice for all. The echoes of the Civil War resonated throughout the 20th century, fueling the struggle for civil rights. The unfulfilled promises of Reconstruction cast a long shadow, reminding African Americans of the fragility of their freedoms. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s drew inspiration from the sacrifices made during the Civil War. Civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. invoked the spirit of Lincoln and the ideals of equality. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 aimed to dismantle barriers to black suffrage erected after Reconstruction. The struggle for racial equality in America is far from over, with contemporary debates over voting rights and systemic racism. The American Civil War left an enduring legacy that continues to shape American society. The war's most profound legacy is the abolition of slavery, paving the way for a more just society. The Civil War amendments enshrined principles of equality and protection under the law. The war also solidified the supremacy of the federal government and reaffirmed the Union's indivisibility. This expansion of federal power shaped American politics and society for generations. The Civil War serves as a reminder of the fragility of democracy and the importance of national unity. The stories of courage and resilience continue to inspire Americans today. The Civil War, though tragic, ultimately forged a stronger